Good morning, guys. It is Jessie G, and I'm sitting here having my coffee as I go over my notes for Our Reason, the third book for Bull and Red. And as I was going through the notes, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be a cool idea or a crazy idea to do a little audio explaining to you how I not only come up with the books and the storylines and the thought process behind what happens, but how I go about doing the sequel. So in the case of Our Reason, I did go back and read For a Reason and Their Reason to refamiliarize myself with the characters. And you would think that since these are my most beloved characters of all time, it was my first bestseller, that I would know them by heart. And it is almost shameful to admit that I don't know them as well as some of you do. Once a book is done, I tend to try and move on. I have to get into somebody else's headspace, or somebody else has to get into my head. And so I have to let the characters go, and so that the next characters don't sound like the same. You know, nobody wants to read the same words coming out of every character's mouth, or the same attitude, or the same, the same personality. You know, every character should stand on its own. Every character should be different and distinguishable. So I do have to let them go. Obviously, I haven't let Red and Bull go too far, since they're getting a third book, and that third book came about because I wanted to do something to benefit the Zebra Coalition, which is a nonprofit organization here in Central Florida, working to help LGBTQ teens on the street get what they need. They have wish lists and places to make financial donations and volunteer work, and I thought that if I could write a book about a teen in need and use that to generate donations, and it would be another way for me to give back. And I couldn't think of a better person, a better character than Red to be involved in this, because he was that troubled teen. And I can't tell you, people said, did I know somebody? Is this based on somebody? Is this based on my life or something? It's not. It's based on different people that have come into my life, different stories that I have been privileged enough to be told, and my heart breaks for each one of them. And I want to do something, but I'm one person, and so what can I do other than rally the people who support me to help support them? So when I wrote this book, I wanted it to be, it gets better kind of a scenario. I wanted it to be where, yes, he's had a really hard life, and he's come out the other side, and he's not only made it, but he's found something he never thought possible: a family, a future, friends, a career, all the things that, he didn't think was going to be possible. And in fact, when we meet him, he is at his lowest, looking ahead, trying to make something happen, but almost certain it's a fool's errand. And when he gets to that point where he's standing on the side of the road and he's just done, he knows he's done. He knows that, he doesn't have the money to get his car fixed. He knows he doesn't have any way to get to this interview. He knows that he's stuck on the side of the highway, somewhere in South Florida, and life has hit its rock bottom. And, I like to think that people come into our lives for a reason. And so I made a character who believed the same thing in Bull. He's a do-gooder. He wants to help people, not because, he wants the accolades so much as it's a need. It's just he calls it his hero complex, but I don't see it that way because I don't think he's looking for anyone to slap him on the back and tell him it's a good job. I think he just needs to know deep inside that he made a difference. But he also believes that everything that happens in his life happens with purpose, with reasoning. That people don't just cross his path just because. That everybody has some meaning uh, behind their intentions in his life. And when he and Red meet on the side of the road, he saw something, and I think that it was more than just that Red was at his lowest and needed help. I think in that moment when their eyes meet and Red, you know, stands up as tall as he possibly can, even though he's feeling defeated, and looks him in the eye and stands his ground, that Bull saw his own, salvation, his own reason, looking back at him. And I think that that's what made these two men click. It was, I keep using the word reason, but Bull had a reason for being, the helper, the hero, the do-gooder. And when he realizes in this book that by helping Red, by, giving him a safe place to grow, and by falling in love, he was healing himself. That's huge for both of them. And it was important for Red to know that it was two-sided, that he wasn't just the only needy person here. So, that's, I think, what made this book so amazing. And I keep going back to that moment when they're standing on the side of the road and they're sizing each other up, one at their lowest, one just, desperate to help. And, it just clicked. And it clicked with the readers too, because you guys are all in on this book, and no matter where I go, no matter what I do, no matter what I write, somebody brings up Red and Bull. And writing their wedding book, well, that was a breeze. I think I wrote that book in like 15 days. Just everything about that book fell into place because their love story was just so compelling to me that it was easy. It was just a natural progression. Our reason is not a natural progression at all, because in For a Reason and in Their Reason, I make it clear that Red and Bull don't want children. I have built these characters as so totally focused on themselves together as a relationship that there is no room for a child. They barely, openly, but barely make room for the people in their lives. Everybody knows that, they are there. They are the first ones to volunteer when someone needs help. They also are very, very insulated in their relationship and extremely private. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. So how do I bring in this troubled teen and make it work? I've had readers, when I suggested it, say, no, Red and Bull shouldn't have children. I don't want them to have children. Or you've always said they're not going to have children, and, now I bought into it, so what are you doing? Things change. It's life. It's, people come into our lives and they change things. A relationship is a change. You may not be looking for it, and then the right person comes along, or even the wrong person comes along. But it makes us pause, and it makes us connect, and it changes our way of thinking. And, as they get involved in the Bennett house, which is what brings this troubled teen into their lives, it is almost inevitable. You'll read in Our Reason when Bull says he knew that Red was going to be completely focused and all in, and see himself in the other, in the men they go to that center, and he wasn't surprised when that empathy, that heartbreaking empathy that Red feels for them turns into focus when he sees more than just a similarity, but himself. Um, and that is what happens with Dylan. And the only way that Red can think to help is by asking Bull for help. And the only way Bull can think to help is by fixing whatever Dylan needs fixed, because it's hurting his husband. Red is hurting, so Bull has to fix it. Red is hurting, so he has to ask Bull to fix it. And Dylan doesn't know what's coming. Dylan couldn't imagine in his whole 16 years that there would ever be two people who would be so focused on making his life better. And, the gigantic group that's going to stand behind them to make it happen. He's not prepared. He doesn't trust it. He's not ready for it, even though he desperately needs it. And to make that all happen, of course, I had to go back to the beginning. I had to see where Bull and Red connected, because whatever they can bring into Dylan's life starts with the two of them and what they've built for themselves. Now, Dylan doesn't come alone. Dylan has a grandmother who has already fought for him and is now, kind of fighting to keep him. She's an older woman. She's on, a fixed income and living in a 55 and older community where Dylan really can't be. But, the residents are all hush-hush because they all feel for him in the situation. And Dylan has parents out there, and, one of them is happy enough to let somebody take on the responsibility, and the other one is just, in deep shit. She's in trouble, and she knows it, and she's on the verge of selling out her son, and, she just doesn't have the first clue what's going to happen when she crosses that path. And, what she thinks is going to be an easy target turns out to be not. But of course, my guys in Miami aren't going to ever, 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 ever let somebody in their care get hurt, especially by a parent. So I thought that I would give you some insight into what my thought process is behind these three books. I would show you the cover, but I'm not ready to do that yet. But as you read For Reason and Their Reason and Our Reason and even the other books in the Sizzling Miami series, and get to know the guys that Bull has brought together, think about that moment on the side of the road when Bull and Red looked at each other for the first time and didn't even realize that they were going to save each other. Because I think about that moment a lot as I'm writing these two men. Anyway, so I'm curious to know what you think about this little video podcast. What is this? I don't even know what we call this. So leave some comments and let me know. Subscribe to my channel. All that good stuff. And of course, For Reason and Their Reason are currently in Kindle Unlimited. The links will be in the comments below. And Our Reason, with any luck, will be out in September of 2017.